Welcome one, welcome all to today's episode of The Lindsay Elmore Show. Did you know that the average American adult is taking 5 medications? That means a lot of people are taking things like antidepressants, statins, and cholesterol-lowering medicines, as well as birth control pills. The problem is these medications cause significant nutrient depletions, which can lead to a broad range of side effects, which may necessitate the prescribing of more medicines. It's a broken system. It's like being a hamster on a wheel chasing after something that you cannot catch. You start taking a statin drug, you start getting fatigued, you get prescribed a sleep aid, you get prescribed something else. It becomes an endless cycle of one medicine chasing the other. Today, I interview Sarah Morgan, who specifically formulated a line of supplements to support nutrient needs in people who are taking specific drugs. We have a fascinating conversation about all of the different nutrients that change when we take medications, and how some of those nutrient changes may actually be leading to the side effects. And then we discuss how supplementing and repleting nutrients that might be lost because of taking a medication can make you feel better. Let's get to the show. Welcome to The Lindsay Elmore Show, a podcast for people who deserve to be healthy, with honest, open, and enlightening conversations with doctors, thought leaders, creatives, and spiritual gurus. You'll walk away with simple and tangible tips and tricks that allow you to live your healthiest life so you can pursue your dreams, overcome obstacles, and leave your mark. Sarah Morgan is the co-founder and CEO of Even. She holds a master's degree in clinical nutrition. For over 13 years, she ran a clinical practice in Denver, Colorado, where she saw a wide variety of patients. In addition to seeing medication-induced nutrient depletions and negative side effects in her patients, Sarah's own experiences pushed her to find a solution. She had suffered on medications and wasn't feeling like herself, and Even was born to solve that problem. Sarah Morgan, welcome to the Lindsay Elmore Show.
Thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be on.
I am so thrilled to talk with you today because you know a whole bunch about medication-induced nutrient depletions. And I know as a pharmacist that when people start on medicines, they're given very minimal information about the safety of them. You know, if people are taking a statin medication, they might get told like, hey, if you start to have major muscle problems, let someone know. But it is undertaught and undereducated. So pharmacists and healthcare providers are not taught a lot about how many profound nutrient depletions can happen because of the consumption of medications. And therefore, patients are undereducated, and it leads to all kinds of problems where we have one med that's being used to lower cholesterol, for example, and now you've got this reduction in one of your key nutrients, and now all of a sudden your patient feels like crap. And you're starting to say, well, you know, maybe it's because you're not sleeping good. So here's another prescription, and here's another prescription. And it's nasty and gnarly. So teach us, let's just start out by talking about what are medication-induced nutrient depletions and how are they impacting the quality of life of people who are using prescription drugs?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So medication-induced nutrient depletions are basically this pharmaceutical scientific truth that when you take a medication and while you get the benefits of the medication, so I want to be very clear that I'm very much for using the medications that you need. They're powerful, they're important, but we need to understand this other truth that these medications impact the way our body absorbs nutrients, metabolizes nutrients, excretes nutrients. There's all kinds of interesting things that happen in terms of our biochemistry and these nutrients that we, need for all kinds of different pathways in our systems to function, whether it's, energy and ATP production with our mitochondria, or it's regulating our inflammatory levels, or it's making neurotransmitters. All these nutrients are helpers in these pathways. And when we take medications, sometimes those nutrient levels can be depleted, and these can happen quickly for certain individuals, or they can happen over time, gradually, which is sometimes why it's confusing, right? Where you're like, okay, I go on birth control, which happened to me, and I'm like, I just kind of feel off and weird and not myself. And sometimes it's hard to describe, which is where I think this gets lost. We don't really know how to report back to either our pharmacist or a doctor what's happening. And, this is also something that isn't really talked about, and it hasn't been addressed until now. And my personal story with side effects of birth control really led me to, one, learn about this, and two, create a solution. So medication-induced nutrient depletions are absolutely crucial to address while you're using a medication. And it's really a truth that you have unique nutrient needs when you take a medication. And it's important to talk to your doctor, talk to your pharmacist about it. And at Even, we are passionate about educating everyone, healthcare professionals and patients, about this important truth and how they can address it and solve for it. Because the cool thing is, it's not that hard to fix.
I agree. It's like, okay, well, if you have a depletion, we need to replete it so that we can get the levels back up. Now, you said something fascinating that I would love for you just to give us a kind of a physiology lesson. You said that medications impact how the body processes, excretes, transports nutrients. Talk to us about some of the general ways that nutrients move through our body. If I eat a banana and I'm consuming some potassium, where do nutrients go, and how does the body process them along the way?
Oh, I love that. That's such a good question. So the first thing is, we have to put it in our mouth and we have to chew it up, and digestion starts in the mouth with our saliva, and we have amylase, activity in our mouth, and then we swallow it. It goes down the esophagus into the stomach, and we've got this mechanistic churning, right? And we've got hydrochloric acid where some of the breakdown happens. Some of our nutrients are actually absorbed there. And then it goes into the small intestines, where I like to say a lot of the magic happens, right? We have all the microvilli that are there positioned to absorb all these nutrients across the gut barrier into our bloodstream. And we've got all kinds of, receptors, transporters that take these nutrients. Even when they cross over into the bloodstream, it's not like a done deal at that point, right? If you look at B12 metabolism, for example, it's extremely complex how it's transported to the tissues and the cells that need to use it. And then when it gets to, the little Uber like picks up the nutrients, takes it to the tissues and the cells that, are going to use that nutrient, you got to kind of ring the doorbell to make sure you're let into the cell, into those tissues, for it to be utilized properly. So one, that has to be set up well, right? And two, the different medications can impact different stages along that path. So a really simple example is statin medications. When you use a statin medication, it inhibits this enzyme in your body that's used to make cholesterol, HMG-CoA reductase to be specific. And what happens is you're reducing cholesterol synthesis in the liver. And at the same time, you're reducing CoQ10 levels. So that's one truth at a very high level. What's really interesting is there are studies looking at, supplementation with CoQ10, And this idea that, when you deplete statin or you deplete CoQ10 levels on a statin, you could potentially have muscle pain, muscle weakness, symptoms of with muscle issues, right? It can look like a lot of different things. And what's interesting is the studies don't necessarily show supplementation with CoQ10 always works, because there's another piece of the puzzle that's really important to look at. And that is, when you're on a statin, you're lowering LDL, which is a type of cholesterol or lipoprotein that, is bringing cholesterol out to the body. But another thing that it does is it transports nutrients. It's a Uber for a lot of nutrients, including CoQ10. So if you lower the amount of LDL that's floating around in your bloodstream, that's good in one aspect for cardiovascular health. But on the side of nutrient transport, it can impact how CoQ10 gets to, for example, your muscle tissue. So there's just one example of how it gets really complex really fast.